Hey guys, welcome back. This video is going to be a bit long this time because I'm making a Niffler from Fantastic Beasts, and this is for a Secret Santa swap, so I'm not selling it. So stay tuned and let's go through the whole process. Okay, so I'm starting off using some Super Sculpey, and I really like doing Super Sculpey when you need something that's semi-transparent and kind of like a light-skinned flesh color. And I'm also adding some Sculpey Original to the back just because I didn't have all that much Sculpey, Super Sculpey, so I was trying to sort of keep the Super Sculpey for the bits that are going to show on the Niffler. So I just added the Sculpey Original to the back of it. So I'm just roughly mapping out the shape of the bill, and then adding some eyes, and then I'll be additive sculpting on top of this piece. So the eyes are glass cabochons and they are painted with some acrylic paint, and I'm just slowly making some little wormies and putting it around the eyes just to create the eyelids, and then I'll go back and build up on it. I just wanted to make sure I had it in the right place. And then I can just sketch out where the opening of the mouth will be, and then just additive sculpt again on top of the bill to get that shape that a Niffler has. So I'm actually not really a big fan of sculpting with Super Sculpey. I find it a bit too hard for my hands, as I like sculpting with softer stuff, and then, you know, baking things and then coming back to it and adding some more clay onto it. But it's good using different materials for a change, and you know, it just expanding your experience with different materials too. So if you don't really like using hard clays, you know, play around with it. I play around with it all the time, but like I said, I prefer some softer clays to work with. That's why I work with monster clay as well. So I really like how soft you can and malleable you can make it. Right, at this point I decided to move the eyes around because I wasn't really happy with the set that I had them in. So I just, you know, pulled them off and set them somewhere else where I thought it was a better location. And I'm just building up the back of the eye wells just so the eyes don't lay too flat. So I'm going to go around again with the little worms and add some little eyelids and stuff as well. Now I find using a metal tool to smooth out Sculpey, Super Sculpey is better than fingers or anything, just because I can achieve a smoother surface, and with the fingers it kind of doesn't really smooth out all that well, I find anyway. But maybe if you have like a fresh batch of Super Sculpey it would smooth out a bit more, but if you have a harder batch of Super Sculpey then I recommend using some metal tools to smooth it out. And again, wasn't happy with the location of the eyes, so I just pulled them off and then decided to build up the bill to what I was happy with, and then I'll go ahead and add the eyes to the head. And I wanted to add a bit more thickness to the lip area of the bill, so I'm just again rolling out some little wormies and then working it into the size of the lip areas, because it was a bit too thin for my liking, and I wanted it a bit more round as well. Moving on to the nostrils, and I just rolled out 2 little balls, and then with my little needle tool I can smooth out the back of the nostrils, and then with my ball tool I can create some of those nostrils as well and just smooth it out and work on making it a bit more smoother. Alright, so I added the eyes back on and made the little wormies, did that whole process again. So just adding some details around the eye area using my tools, my metal tools, just like some little wrinkles and stuff around the eyelids. And also just making sure the bill is smoothed out in all of the places. Alright, so here's the finished Niffler head. I'm going to go and bake it right now. So majority of the back half of the face will be covered in faux fur. So the white clay behind it isn't really a big deal. It's more of a core placer as well. So we can move on to sculpting the hands and the feet. Okay, so for the nails, I'm using this transparent, I think it's a Fimo actually, and just rolling out some little nails that look like nails, and then when this is baked, this will be a sort of semi-transparent. It's much like your own fingernail color, so I thought this would work really well for Niffler claws. So I just rolled out a whole bunch of little point spike sort of things, and then I think there were 5 for each hand and feet, and then I went ahead and I baked them in the oven according to the instructions on the polymer clay packet. Alrighty, so using some more of that Super Sculpey in that light flesh tone, I'm going to be sculpting some hands and feet. So I start off by using a rough size piece of Sculpey, and then I will sort of manage it into sort of a hand figure, and then I'll go ahead and add some more details or add some more Sculpey where it needs to, and also add those nails. So I'm just making some markings with my needle tool where I want the little fingers to be, and then I'll go from there and sort of mold them into little fingers. And then going ahead and sticking those little nails inside of the finger places. It was pretty sturdy, just maybe if you're doing this to just be wary that if your hole is too big for your claws, then they are likely to fall out. But if you blend the Sculpey into the nail itself, it should be fine. I didn't have any problems. I was tugging on them to make sure they weren't going to fall out, and I didn't have a problem. And the hardest part about sculpting individual feet is to make sure they are the right size. So always have your first sculpt and your reference pictures close by to make sure that they're all symmetrical and the same size. And also that you have the left and right feet or hands as well. The good thing about sculpting is I don't have to cast it, yay! Alright, so everything is baked now, and this is what we have. So we have the Niffler head that is baked and ready to be put together, and then we have the hands, both left and right hands, and we also have the left and right feet. And moving on to the fur, and this is the faux fur that I'll be using. I thought it was perfect for Niffler fur. It is Mongolian faux fur in black, and I luckily just had enough to make this Niffler doll. I will get some more eventually, but yeah, I'm plumb out of this fur now. So I have gone ahead and made some patterns of a Niffler body. And I'm going to go ahead and cut them out using a small pair of sharp scissors, and I prefer using a smaller pair of sharp scissors over a blade or anything else, just because you have more control over what you're cutting, and you can get those blades in between the pile of the fur, and that means you're not cutting it, and it also doesn't damage the backing of the fur. So I know when you use a blade, most of the time the fur at the back will stretch, and I don't really like the way that is. And once I've cut all my parts out, I'll then pin it first side together, and I will sew majority of it up on the sewing machine. I prefer using a sewing machine just because the doll has a lot more strength in the body than over hand sewing things. So this is what we look like when I've sewn up some of the parts using a sewing machine. I'm going to have to hand sew a lot of the rest of it just because it is a complex piece, and I can't really get these into the sewing machine when they're all pinned together, and then I can't really flip it the right way around as well. So a lot of it will be hand sewn, unfortunately, because I don't like hand sewing. And these pieces will be the front and the back pieces, and then I will attach the arms and the legs as separate pieces because it was a bit more of a strange pattern, and I went for more of a plushy style pattern this time. Okay, so I have made a wire armature and attached all of the pieces to the armature inside. I've also inserted it inside of the body. I am I have actually completed this tutorial, but I have around 5 tutorials that I wanted to release as a set for cheaper than buying them individually. So I think I have around 2 left to do, and then they will be available. I hope to have them up before Christmas, so if anyone's thinking of getting tutorials for someone, I will have them, and they will be downloadable in a zip, so it will come with a PDF and a video tutorial as well. Alright, so what I'm doing here is I'm go ahead and sewing up the bottom end using a ladder stitch, and I have a ladder stitch tutorial on my channel. Just have a search, it should be in Materials 101 playlist, and I've also added some polyfill to the inside to give it a squishiness. And once all of the body is sewn up, I can move on to the arms, and it's the same deal. I'm just sewing using a ladder stitch and actually attaching it to the body, and then I will be gluing the fur piece onto the Sculpey using a tacky fabric glue. And I use a glue from Spotlight here in Australia. It's just a fabric glue, fabric craft glue. It's pretty good. It attaches almost anything to anything. So I just squirt a decent amount into the armhole and then attach it to either the resin or the Sculpey piece, and it will stick in a couple of hours. So I repeat the process for both the other arm and both legs, and just wait for it to dry before I do anything else. Okay, so once this is all dry, here's what we have so far. So nothing's been trimmed or anything, so it's a bit out of control still, but I will go ahead and trim some of this faux fur and give it more of a Niffler look and sculpt the body a little bit more so it actually looks like something and not a big fluff ball. And here's what we have after a trip to the haircut. So I can go ahead and put some fur onto the face area. The hands are pretty much done just because the Niffler has sort of skin hands, I guess. So I left the back of it a bit longer just because it has longer as well if you look at reference photos, and I have a little tail there too. So after the trip to another hairdresser, Niffler has some fur on his head, and you can see how it really came together when you applied that fur on the head. It hid all of the white clay, and I've actually left it the actual length of the faux fur, so you can move it around and style it however you want. So if you want the head to be bigger, you can style it that way as well. Now I'm going to be adding some shading to the mouth and the hand part. So I wanted a little bit of redness just because I didn't want it a stark light toned skin color. So I'm going to be trying out some cool red. I just watered down and then brushed onto the muzzle area. So I didn't really like the way that this particular paint actually sat on the Sculpey. I wasn't really getting much of a color variation, so I sort of scrapped this paint. It didn't really do what I wanted it to do, and it was the wrong tone as well. It was too much of a blue tone, so I sort of scrapped that paint and tried a different one. So I tried a paint by Dervy and Matisse, and it was more of a orangey tone. Then the other one was a blue tone, and I thought this worked really well, so I watered it down a little bit and then applied it to the mouth area, and you can see how much more pigment it has and more color variation it has. So I just did a light coat over the muzzle area and the hand area too. Okay, so I've let that dry, and here is what we have, and you can see how much more life that little bit of red brought to the face. It's not just like a plain one coloured face. There's some definition to it and some dimension as well, so that's what Super Sculpey is really great for. So like I said at the start, this is for a gift, so it won't be for sale, but I do have some dolls looking for homes in my shop, and they are currently, a lot of it is discounted, so check it out and see if you can find anything for Chrissy or for yourself. And that is it for me today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. If you have any video requests, you can leave it in the comments down below. You can also check me out on Instagram and Facebook at Creatures of Nat, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!